Chasing a girl means losing her. If chasing a girl means losing her, then the opposite is also true. If you can get a girl to chase you, then she is yours. And if you are an older man, the most effective way to get younger women to chase you is through strategic conversation. It's not so much about what you say, but how you conduct the interaction. The key is in asking the right questions. When you know which questions to ask, she will do most of the talking, which takes the pressure off you. Today, in this video, we're going to change the power dynamic by asking the right questions. Most men ask questions just to keep the conversation going, which is like playing checkers, right? But I'm about to show you how to play chess, where every question you ask is a strategic move to make her chase you. But before we get to the questions, let's quickly review why specific questions, what I like to call chase trigger questions, can make a woman chase you, especially a younger woman. Because typically men chase women, which almost always fails. To make a woman chase you, she needs a reason to do so. And today, we will cover 3 types of questions that make a woman chase you for 3 different reasons. First, we have questions that establish a standard. These questions provide an incentive that prompts her to chase you. Next, we will cover questions that validate. These tap into the principle of the golden mirror, making her desire your approval. Finally, we will cover questions that demonstrate authority. These allow you to subtly showcase your dominance and knowledge, establishing your value. We will use these 3 triggers, incentives, validation, and value, to turn the tables and make her chase you. But keep in mind that this will be a gradual achievement, not an immediate change. The goal is to introduce a chase trigger and then build on it with follow-up questions that fuel her interest. Now that we have established the foundation, let's dive into the questions. Number 1. Questions that establish a standard. If you want a woman to chase you, you need to give her something to chase, which means you need to establish a standard. And to establish a standard, you need to know what your standards are. As an older man, this shouldn't be too difficult. You should already know what you're looking for in a woman, and you probably do. However, what you probably don't do, or at least don't do effectively, is communicate these standards to the women you're interacting with. Most men don't establish standards, and this usually means the woman sets the standard, which makes him chase her, leading to her losing interest. Even if you are one of the few men who feel comfortable expressing your standards to a woman, you are likely doing it somewhat bluntly. Because simply listing your standards and expectations almost always comes off as a cold shower, right? While it's good that you are setting a standard, you are doing it at the cost of disrupting the vibe. A much better way to communicate your standards is to incorporate them into a question. So instead of saying, "I like intelligent women," you can ask, "What was the last good book you read?" Or let's say you like well-traveled or adventurous women, you can ask about the craziest place she has ever visited or the last country she stamped on her passport. By establishing a standard this way, you do a few essential things, right? First, you show her that you have standards, but you do it subtly because you would only ask about the last good book she read because it matters to you, which communicates what you're looking for and gives her something to chase. Even if she hasn't read a good book in years, if she tries to answer the question, it sets the stage that she is trying to meet your standards, which gets her in the habit of chasing you. Now, if a woman doesn't respond to the question, for instance, if she says something like, "Oh, I don't read," it's not the worst thing actually, because it opens the door for playful teasing. Whenever this happens, I usually challenge playfully. So going back to the reading example, I might say something like, "You don't read? Really? How come?" This puts her a bit on the defensive and creates a healthy, attractive tension. What I have found is that women often come back from this. Maybe she says something like, "Oh well, the last good book I read was in high school," or "The last good book I read was in college." To respond to this, I usually say something like, "Oh, that makes sense because you stopped reading since no one showed you the good books." This gives her an out, right? It allows her to agree with me and get on my side while maintaining her pride. But even better, it positions me as someone who knows these good books. Again, this is a great way to trigger a chase because most women, at least, will become curious and ask something like, "All right, so what are these good books? What should I be reading?" And by saying that, even if she is a bit skeptical, she is confirming that you have knowledge she wants to know. In other words, you have an incentive that you can use to make her chase you. Think of it as an itch that she is asking you to scratch. At first, it might be just a light itch, right? But the more you drag it out without scratching it, the more it intensifies. Whenever I meet a woman and sense that she is curious about something I said, about my lifestyle or something that came up in the conversation, I use it as a chase trigger. So if a woman asks about books she should be reading, I would probably respond with something like, "Oh yeah, I'll tell you when I get to know you a bit better." Or, "Sure, I'll give you a reading list in a second, but first I want to know about..." And then I would change the subject, right? Because I am keeping the incentive out of reach. I am not essentially saying no, but I am saying not yet. Now, if you understand how to keep an incentive out of reach, you know the secret to making a woman chase you. Number 2, validating questions. Communicating your interest in a woman is essential because no one will pursue someone they think they have no chance with. However, you need to communicate the right kind of interest, and you need to do it in the right way. If all you do is shower a woman with compliments and flattery, you'll come across as desperate and pathetic, and will certainly kill any attraction or even respect she might have for you. A better way to communicate interest is by validating and acknowledging her for something she has had to work to achieve. This is very different from a flattering compliment that praises her for something she was simply born with, like her appearance. When you validate her, you speak to her on a deeper and more intimate level. And almost all women find validation more gratifying and more attractive than a meaningless compliment they've probably heard 1,000 times before. Now, to validate in the right way, pay close attention when she's talking, because she'll tell you exactly how she wants to be validated. That's so crucial. The secret to standing out among all the other men vying for a woman's attention is to recognize her in the way she wants to be seen. To illustrate this, imagine the following story. John was at a party when he spotted Anna, a very attractive woman he had seen a few times before but never had the chance to talk to. She was chatting animatedly with some friends, and he decided it would be a good opportunity to approach her. He introduced himself and started a casual conversation about the party and the people present. After a few minutes of conversation, he noticed Anna mentioned that she loved traveling. John saw an opportunity to create an incentive that would pique her curiosity. He asked, "What was the most memorable trip you've taken, and why?" Excitedly, Anna began talking about a trip to Italy and how much she loved the culture, food, and people. John, realizing he had sparked her interest, strategically replied, "I also love traveling and know some places you would probably love, but I think it would be better to tell you after we get to know each other a bit more. But tell me, what else do you enjoy besides traveling?" Anna, now more engaged in the conversation, continued sharing her other passions and hobbies. John continued validating her responses, paying close attention and asking specific questions about her experiences and interests. He knew he was establishing a deeper connection and showing genuine interest in getting to know her. For example, when Anna mentioned she enjoyed cooking, John asked, "What's the most challenging dish you've ever cooked, and how was the experience?" Excitedly, Anna began talking about learning to make authentic Italian risotto and how satisfying it was to get the recipe right. John continued the validation by saying, "You seem to have a real passion for cooking and an incredible dedication to learning new recipes. That's really impressive." By the end of the night, Anna was clearly interested in John. He had managed to keep her engaged and curious, always keeping the incentive just out of immediate reach and validating her interests in a way that made her feel special and understood. This approach made Anna feel that John saw her uniquely and appreciated her qualities beyond her appearance, creating a genuine and lasting connection. Understanding this can set you apart from all the other men she's talking to. In fact, if I had to choose 5 dating skills to master, the golden mirror, asking validating questions, would absolutely be on that list. So, it's a skill you should work on mastering. And what that means is you need to become a keen listener. Listen attentively. When a woman is talking, almost imagine yourself as a detective. Listen to the words she uses, the phrases, the expressions, and really ask yourself, what seems to be most important to her? Which qualities seem most important to her? Once you've identified a characteristic, quality, or skill that you think is a central component of her identity, the next step is to figure out how to show her that you see her this way, rather than just saying it. As I mentioned earlier, asking her something is often an easy way to do just that. Whether asking for a recommendation, advice, or even her opinion, validating through a question is a very effective way to communicate attractively with women. Number 3, Questions that demonstrate authority. Whenever you're an authority or master something, especially if it's something of interest to a woman, that's an attraction trigger. Even having a basic understanding can be attractive. But you have to establish your knowledge in a subtle way that doesn't seem like you're showing off or bragging. To do this, once again, we can use a well-placed question. To illustrate this, imagine the following story. In an elegant bar in New York, John met Maria, an attractive woman who worked as an editor for a fashion magazine. Curious, he struck up a conversation, and during the exchange of words, Maria mentioned her job. John also worked in the editorial field, but instead of simply stating, "Oh, I'm an editor too," he decided to show his knowledge and authority in a more subtle way. So he asked, "Are you a full editor or an assistant editor?" The question made Maria laugh. She explained that she had actually been promoted to full editor just 3 weeks ago. John smiled and replied, "Well done, so your name is on the masthead. That's impressive." This response was significant because John knew that the masthead of a publication is the section listing the editorial team. It's something most people don't pay attention to, but those who work in the industry recognize its importance. Maria was impressed with John's knowledge and how discreetly he demonstrated his authority. This example perfectly illustrates how well-placed questions, using insider knowledge and specific jargon, can establish someone as an authority. By using this approach, John managed to stand out without seeming overbearing or boastful, creating a genuine and attractive connection with Maria. If you tell a woman, "Oh, I do that," in conversation, it'll lead down a very predictable path, right? It becomes an interview style because we can all imagine what comes next. When you say something like that, she'll ask, "Oh, which magazine do you work for? What's it like working there? Do you know so-and-so?" That's why you should always show your authority or insider status to a woman, instead of just saying it. You can also display it in a way that attracts the woman, sparking her curiosity and making her want to know more. I'd like to make a quick observation here. Some of the best techniques and tactics you can learn are things that women do with you, because you can deconstruct them and add them to your repertoire. In summary, we've seen that the key to making a woman pursue you is to change the traditional power dynamics in interactions using strategic questions. This method is especially effective for older men who wish to attract younger women. The approach involves asking questions that set standards, validate qualities, and demonstrate authority without seeming exaggerated or vain. Firstly, standard-setting questions are crucial. They give the woman something to pursue and show that you have clear expectations. Instead of merely stating your standards, you can incorporate them into subtle questions. For example, asking "What was the last good book you read?" communicates that you value intelligence and reading without interrupting the flow of conversation. This makes the woman feel the need to meet your standards, beginning to pursue you subconsciously. Secondly, validation questions are essential for establishing a deeper connection. Validating a woman for something she has worked to achieve, rather than just complimenting her appearance, creates a more meaningful bond. It's crucial to pay attention to what she says and recognize the qualities and skills she values most in herself. For instance, if she mentions a passion for cooking, asking, "What was the most challenging dish you've ever cooked?" not only validates her interest, but also shows that you see her in a unique and special way. This genuine validation makes her feel understood and appreciated, increasing her attraction to you. Finally, authority-demonstrating questions are powerful for establishing your worth without appearing arrogant. When you demonstrate insider knowledge of a subject that interests her, you stand out as competent and interesting. Instead of stating, "I'm also an editor," you could ask a question that demonstrates your knowledge of the publishing world, such as, "Are you a real editor or an editorial assistant?" This type of question not only shows that you understand the industry jargon and nuances, but also creates a connection through mutual recognition of expertise. It can pique her curiosity and make her want to know more about you. These three approaches, setting standards, validating qualities, and demonstrating authority, are effective because they play on natural attraction triggers. Each well-placed question serves as a strategic move in a chess game where each interaction is planned to generate curiosity, validation, and desire. Instead of seeming like a dull interview, the conversation becomes an intriguing game where she feels motivated to get to know you better. Therefore, by implementing these techniques, you not only shift the power dynamics, but also create a richer and more engaging interaction. The key is to make her see you as someone worth pursuing, someone who challenges and validates her in ways other men cannot. This not only increases attraction, but also lays a solid foundation for a lasting connection. So, next time you converse with an attractive woman, especially if there's a significant age difference, remember to use these strategic questions to turn the tables in your favor. I would like to thank everyone for watching and following along so far. I hope the techniques and strategies shared in this video have been helpful and that you feel more confident in your interactions. Remember, the key is to ask strategic questions that establish standards, validate qualities, and demonstrate authority subtly and effectively. Keep practicing and refining these skills to create genuine and attractive connections. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with friends who may benefit. Also, leave your comments below to show that you've made it this far. Thanks again, and see you in our next video.